Welcome to another edition of Answers Network. I'm your host, Allen-Cardoza, and each week this show will address many ways of creating greater health, joy, and love for you and those you care about. We will introduce you to top professionals and talented authors who are working to make this world a better place for all of us. Now, I'd really appreciate it if you could all do me a big favor. Please forward this show to your social media group and to someone you know who can benefit from today's subject. And I guarantee you, everybody knows someone that can benefit from today's subject. This is just one powerful way that we can make a positive difference together. Now, I want you all to know that I am truly grateful that you take your time to listen to or watch this show, and especially those that send in questions, comments, reviews, and suggestions. Because please remember, this show exists for you. Now, if you haven't gotten your free copy of the Attitude of Gratitude Journal yet, please go to our website at answers.network and download a copy. Give it 21 days and comment on whatever platform you listen to us on, what focusing on gratitude has meant for you and your loved ones. And if you would like to, also, please send in some questions that you have for us. If you send them into the website, we will put them on the air and we will share them with everyone. Now, as many of you who know me or have listened to this show for some time, I believe that the best way for us to make a positive difference in the world is to start with our young people. Well, our guests today are doing just that. So I am grateful to have with us Jeff, Kathy, and Kara Long. Jeff is a film producer and director. He has helped Fortune 500 companies market, sell, and explain their products and services to many people all over the world. He has taught at Columbia College in Hollywood and wrote the book, A Parent's Guide to Anorexia. Jeff agrees with the Mark Twain quote, "The two most important days of our life are the day that you were born and the day that you discover why." Now, helping teens and families heal from mental health issues is what he has discovered is his why. Kathy is a licensed acupuncturist and has been in practice for over 25 years. She believes in the ripple effect and knows that by improving the life of one person, you impact many, and has seen this firsthand in her medical practice. She also loves working outside, spending time with the family animals, and the ladies in her book club. Jeff and Kathy's daughter, Kara, is a student at the University of California, Davis. She is a mental health advocate with a passion for psychology and helping others. After spending years in treatment for anorexia nervosa, depression, and anxiety, she strives to share her experience with teens who are currently struggling. She works at an intensive outpatient treatment program and speaks to groups frequently on mental health issues. All three are co-founders of the nonprofit organization Teens4Teens.org, an innovative peer-to-peer platform for young people seeking recovery. Well, Long family, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So as I was sharing a little bit with you prior to us going on the air, I have said for many, many years that the best way that we're going to be able to make a difference is for us to start with our young people. I love that you are doing this, but share with us what your inspiration was for starting Teens4Teens Help.
Our inspiration was our daughter, Kara, and our entire family. We went through, Kara's mental health crisis as a family, and it wasn't easy.
No, not easy at all.
We spent about 5 years, going to residential programs, treatment centers, hospitals, and we didn't know anything about this subject when we started, and it was incredibly difficult. My father is a child psychologist, and so I remember at the beginning of high school when Kara was in 9th grade or starting high school, I said, "Dad, she's wearing black. She's talking in, one-word sentences. The answer is mostly fine," which I decoded as F, I'm not explaining. And, what do we do? And he said, "Well, how are her grades?" And I said, "She's getting straight A's." And he said, "Oh, it's a phase. Don't worry about it." but my father didn't know anything about anorexia and eating disorders.
Mhm.
And so, we took Kara to a therapist, and that's kind of when the wheels fell off.
Yeah, we we learned the hard way that when you work on different issues, when you work on one, another one kind of pops up, and we described it as whack-a-mole. And so when she was working on her depression, then the eating disorder kind of got out of control, and it got to the point where we took her into the doctor, and the pediatrician said she needs to go into a treatment center now.
Yeah, she was down to 32 heartbeats a minute, which is very dangerous.
Yeah,
Wow.
so we were absolutely floored and lost and confused and sad and didn't know what to do or where to turn. So we eventually got her rather quickly into a treatment center and started the process. And also nobody told us that, when they let you go after 30 days, they dismissed her because she was medically stable. That doesn't mean you're recovered. And we didn't really understand that. And we didn't understand that recovery is anything but a straight line for many issues, and especially eating disorders. Eventually, that's what led to us writing the book, which we can talk about later. But
Well,
as
let
we
me
were,
ask. Yeah, let me ask Kara. So, Kara, at the time in which this is going on, what are you feeling and what are you going through? Because obviously you're the focus of this at that time, and there's some decisions being made that you may not have been real happy about. How were you taking all of this, and what was your thoughts of having being the person going through all of this?
I mean, there's so much going on. I had been really depressed and wrapped up in my eating disorder and a variety of mental health issues for a long time. And so I was already just in my own world. I already felt like, I was in this bubble, and I was, kind of comfortable, or at least used to being so uncomfortable, so miserable, just constantly like, wanting to end my life and going through all these feelings. And so when it kind of came to my parents' attention, I felt like, they were like bursting that bubble of like my personal space. And so, my response was to push them away, to fight. I'm fine, leave me alone. And when they sent me to therapy, I'm like, that's when I just kind of gave up trying to pretend to be okay, because I didn't know what treatment, I didn't know that residential existed. And so I was like, okay, like, what are you going to do about it now? Kind of attitude. Because I was just so full of this self-destructive energy. And so they offered, they said like, oh, I have to put you into treatment. And my, immediate response was, okay, so I'm going somewhere and I don't have to live at home and I don't have to go to school. Like, that can't be that bad. And I went into treatment, and of course, everything exploded, and it was, terrifying and painful. And I was just kind of stuck in this tornado. And so I didn't really know what was going on. I had never learned anything about, mental health issues. I didn't know that what I was going through was something that can happen to people. I didn't know like how eating disorders worked. I thought that was just kind of who I was and part of my life. And I don't know what all these people are doing, trying to analyze me and, poking and prodding. And it was a lot of overwhelm and confusion.
Okay. And so when you got to the program, and when you mentioned at one point, you said, well, I'm not going to have to go to school, and I'm not going to have to live at home, so it can't be all that bad. What was your initial, what did you expect? What did you think that was going to be happening?
That was the thing, is I hadn't thought that far. I didn't have any expectations. They just kept referring to it as a higher level of care. And, again, like, I had never learned about any of this stuff, learned about mental health or how treatment worked. And so I was just like, oh, I go and I live at this place for a little while. Okay. I didn't realize that meant like daily therapy and going through the process of refeeding, which was so painful and so stressful. And, like my mom was saying, these problems are like whack-a-mole. And so it's like, once I started addressing my eating disorder, like I became more depressed, I became more suicidal. And so, I kind of went into it with, no impression. And again, it's just that confusion.
So Jeff and Kathy, share with our audience, because I know that we have a lot of parents that listen. Share with the struggle that you went through in making this very important decision.
Well, the decision was kind of made for us, honestly. The struggle was before we had to put her into treatment, when it was just, we didn't know what to do. And, you know, how much do you chalk up to just, you know, teenage angst? And this is what kids go through. And, you know, they're discovering themselves, and they're, you know, they naturally push against their parents because they're being an individual. And so, you know, at what point does that behavior then become something that really needs to be addressed? And that's a difficult road to navigate. But for us, you know, it was a physical thing. There was the bottom line, which was this has to happen. So we're really lucky that we had a pediatrician with experience with eating disorders and an understanding of the severity of them, and just kind of took the bull by the horns for us and said, this is what you have to do.
But emotionally, it was so difficult to, you know, put your child with somebody else to care for her.
Yeah, you know, one of the worst days, there were a few, but one of the worst ones was just dropping her off and leaving, and, you know, hoping that these people really were going to take care of my child and help her down that road to recovery.
And that, you know, there's feelings of, you know, shame and confusion, and you know, we just never encountered anything like this, so it was all new, and, you know, we didn't know anything about eating disorders and anorexia, and so we had a lot to learn, and we did, but it was not easy. And I remember for the first couple of years, I just said, look, I'm fine, I'll just be the dad and I can get through this. Well, after 2 years, there was nothing left, and that's when I finally started going to support groups, Al-Anon, NAMI, you know, and started doing some self-care, because if you don't put on your own oxygen mask first, you can't help anyone else. And it's really important that parents and teens get support groups, because you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
So Kara, at what point did you feel like you turned the corner to where you were understanding better, and you felt like, okay, I now know who I am, where I'm at, and I've turned the corner, and there are much brighter days ahead?
Gosh, that's a difficult question. You know, it was a long and bouncy road, and it took me quite a while. The experience that I can, you know, think of that matches kind of most to that, like, turning point, was when I was at my third residential facility. And I was, you know, I'd been working with the therapist for a while, and I was finally starting to get it, because at my other residentials and my other treatment centers, I was very combative. And I was very much like, don't control me, you know, I don't want to change, leave me alone, I'm not going to do this. And so I finally got tired of, you know, fighting, and I started being honest, and I started opening up. And I had this specific therapy session outside. And it was just this really nice day out, and I was talking with my therapist, and I had this kind of overwhelming sensation, like this light came in, and it was kind of like the flip of a switch. And I thought to myself, like, you know, maybe suicide's not the answer, because, like, that was kind of my whole thing, is like, throughout this journey, that was like my underlying, you know, I guess kind of, you know, goal, you could say. Because I was just like, okay, fine, I'll go through treatment, and then, you know, I can just end my life. Like, I have, you know, all these plans, it's set. That's the only way that, you know, I see my life going. You know, just very black and white. And so it was just kind of this realization, like, maybe it doesn't necessarily have to end like that. Like, maybe I can at least try to, you know, listen to these people, because it's like, I know what it's like to be sick and to be struggling, but everybody keeps talking about this, like, recovery, and I don't know what that is. So I might as well, like, give it a shot, because quite frankly, I feel like it can't get any worse than this. And so it was through that kind of willingness to be vulnerable, and to just kind of give myself, you know, the benefit of the doubt, like, there's an opportunity for change.
Did you find that it was a benefit when you went to some of these programs and spoke with some of the other young people there, that you weren't alone in some of
Oh,
these struggles?
yeah, I mean, it was huge, huge. Just like, when I said my first, time in treatment, I didn't know what to expect because, like, all I knew was this is just who I am, right? And so I get there and I meet people and I'm like, oh, there are other people like me. Like, oh, these are, problems that people have. Like, this is, another illness. It's not just this, it's not just that I'm like a faulty human, right?
Mhm.
And so it was super helpful. I got to meet people, my age, in my position, I could relate to, and I could like talk to, and we gave each other strength and we gave each other encouragement because it's like, okay, we're in this together. I got your back. Like, let's just try. And so, yeah, it was huge.
Yeah. Now that sounds like the catalyst behind forming your nonprofit, which is to be able to bring people together and have young people speak with other young people and feel that they're not alone in their struggles. Is that an accurate statement
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
for all of you?
yeah, yeah. And it's just a little bit different. It's a site where people can hear other stories of recovery. It's not a one-on-one where they're speaking with someone, but they're hearing someone's story of recovery, so that, just like Kara said, they understand that there's somebody else out there that's gone through this and they've gotten to the other side, and this is how they did it, so that it gives them hope and a choice to recover.
Yeah, Brene Brown says something to the effect of, your story of experience might be somebody else's survival guide. And that's kind of how we based it. But actually, it was based on Kara's experience because, first we wrote the book, A Parent's Guide to Anorexia, and then Kara finished her final treatment program. And at that program, she spoke at a high school to other high school students. And then the next year, the high school said, can we have that girl come back and talk again? And Kara was out of treatment. And I said, Kara, do you want to talk? And she said, yeah, sure. And so she went back to talk again. And then, Kara, I think it's important that you tell this part.
Yeah, Kara, please do.
Cool. So I'd like to like backtrack a little bit. Because when I initially spoke to the was when I was still in my last like intensive treatment. I was in my intensive outpatient. And I had really, really bad social anxiety, and I was scared to talk in front of like my group in therapy, let alone an entire classroom full of teenagers I don't know. But my whole thought process was, if I was in high school and I heard someone speak who like was sharing experiences that I was having, again, to know like people get through this, it would have changed my life. And so I went simply hoping that, maybe there's someone in a position like that who would benefit from it. And I went there and I was really scared and I spoke and I just kind of blacked out. Like, I sat down and before I knew it, everybody was clapping and I was walking out and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I said. But I came back the next year because it's like, I guess they liked what I said. And if anyone likes it, if anyone can, benefit from it, then, it's worth it. It's worth facing that uncomfortability. And so I did go back, and after speaking to one of the classes, we stepped outside and this boy came up to me. He's like, can I give you a hug? And I was like, okay, sure. And then he told me that he heard me speak the year prior. And after listening to my story, he was encouraged to seek help because he had been really suicidal at the time. And then after that inspiration, he started doing a lot better. And so that just really, struck me. And it was like, okay, that was my goal. I was able to, help someone, even if it was just that one person, like sharing my experience and my pain made a difference.
Well, and that's just the one that came up and told you. There's lots of other people that you make a difference with, and they choose not to share it with you at that moment. So, yeah, I think that's beautiful. So I think that it's no surprise to anybody watching or listening that we're currently in a mental health crisis, and not just in this country, across the world. And we know that it is hitting young people, I believe, probably harder than anyone. So I think your timing is perfect in regards to having this out there. Share a little bit about what you're doing with the nonprofit and some of the ways in which it's making a difference.
Go ahead.
We've been working on it for 2 years, and we have created these stories of recovery in all categories of mental health issues. Eventually, right now we have anxiety, depression, eating disorders, addiction, and suicide prevention. And we have teens telling their story of recovery, like I was saying, explaining how they got through it and what it looked like for them. And then we really believe that knowledge is power. And so underneath these categories, we have short informational videos about them, like for depression, types of depression and signs and symptoms and coping tools and therapy and just informational videos. And then think of it as a funnel. And then underneath that, we list resources where people can get help, whether it's apps, text lines, websites, places for them to get and reach out for help. And, the goal is just to get this out to as many teens as possible through social media, through schools. We're working with different school districts, health class out so that people can use what we're doing and what we're creating to just start that conversation.
And we also have, kind of a self-help section that has things like meditation, how to start your own mental health club, art therapy, just as many different things as we can put on there. And of course, we're growing. Kathy mentioned the 5 categories. We have many more that we want to add. And that's all part of our growing process. And the other thing that we started just this fall is something called Teen Talks, where every second Tuesday of each month, we have a teen from our teen board interview a mental health professional on a subject. So in September, we had a senior talk to a therapist about anxiety. And next Tuesday, we've got a junior from another high school talking to a therapist about depression. And so we're going to do this every month. And then anyone who comes in can ask questions in the Q&A. And then we'll post these things on our site because, again, we're just trying to, get the stigma out of there, get the conversations going, get information out there, because we know that teens will listen to other teens. And so that's the secret sauce of this is it's teens delivering their stories and the information to their peers, where it makes the most impact in a digital form on video, which is their native, way of gathering information. And so that's basically what we're trying to do. I'm sure you've got other questions or we can go into more detail.
No, and I love the fact that you're doing it on video. As someone who I'm the director of a nonprofit that fights human trafficking, and we know that when people are connecting where you're not seeing them, you don't always know that you are dealing with that person. And it's interesting because we have a question that's coming in right now, and this one I think addresses that, but it asks that. And it says, I love what you're doing, and I have a question about safety. How do you monitor and keep teens, who are working for sex trafficking groups, for example, from infiltrating and connecting to your youth, potentially causing harm to them? And this is from Naomi in New York.
Well, we don't have youth interacting with youth. It's a one-way site. It's a site that disseminates information, right. And then they can find help and they can connect with our resources. But for many reasons, we don't. That's why it's not like, we're not Teen Line where you can call up and speak to a teen on the phone. That's what Teen Line does, and they're really good at that. So
one of our resources.
Then they're one of our resources. So. It's because it's a one-way directional communication.
Okay, yeah, and that makes sense. But I also see where the person asking the question, Naomi, obviously you guys have thought of that, and so you've made sure that can't happen, and I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. So we're going to take a break, but when we come back, I'd like you to go into more detail that talks more about some of the success stories, some of the stories that people have brought in, that you've posted, and then do people then comment on that? In other words, hey, 6 months ago we read this, and here's where we're at now. Do you have those sort of follow-up things? And if you do, I would love for you to share them, because anybody that's listening to this show knows that that's my favorite part, are the success stories. So for everybody, stay with us. We'll be right back. You're listening to Answers Network.
Founded over 30 years ago to meet the needs of families in crisis, West Shield has continually focused on resolving issues that negatively impact families and businesses. Our signature therapeutic transportation service helps to ensure that adolescents in crisis are safely transported to specialized schools, programs, and treatment centers with unsurpassed experience and success. We are supported by our full-service licensed investigation agency that has legally, professionally, and passionately located hundreds of runaways and teens. We are experienced and qualified to help, offering solutions which may include referrals to our international network of top professionals in the fields of educational consulting, psychology, psychiatry, and investigations. Simply put, West Shield Adolescent Services and West Shield Investigations are the best solutions when your family is facing a personal crisis. Call 1-800-899-8585, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's 1-800-899-8585, or visit our website at westshield.com. Thank you.
And we're back. We are speaking with Kara, Kathy, and Jeff Long, and we are talking about their nonprofit organization, Teens4Teens Help. Now, .org, if you're going to go to that. So let's talk a little bit about who your organization is comprised of. So obviously we're meeting the three of you, but I'm sure there are more people involved. Share with us a little bit about that.
I'll start, and then Kathy can jump in. We have a lot of wonderful, wonderful volunteers, and we're basically working with three groups. We work with universities to kind of curate the research and information for the informational videos, and UCSF, USC, UC Davis, and USC social work, the Dvorak Peck Social Work School. Dr. Lewis and some dedicated graduate students are working directly with us to help us grow capacity. And so we're very grateful to them, and that is fantastic. We also have a group of professional
Volunteers.
Yeah, they're therapists and mental health professionals, and we use them to, look at all our material before it goes up, to review it, to make sure that it's not triggering, to make sure that it's correct, that we didn't miss anything. And then most importantly, we have a wonderful group of our teen advisory boards. And they're the most important part, because everything goes through them. It has to be in their speak and look the way they want it to look. And so they're basically our review board. And we're just behind the scenes, putting these things together with their input. What did I miss?
Yeah, no, we've got the different sets of volunteers, and, we're just working on growing our capacity building right now. And when people go to the site, what you see is the beginning of the vision. Eventually, we would love to have 20 or more stories in every category, because we feel it's really important that every, socioeconomic, race, religion, gender is covered, so that somebody can see a story that they can relate to. So that's really important to us. So it's really, as Jeff says, if you're looking at building a house, we've got one room done, and we've got lots of plans and big visions to build it out.
Yeah, because we know it's the right way to reach out to teens right now for mental health. And that's, again, the secret sauce is that, there's a lot of great sites out there, and they cover a lot of great nonprofits, and they'll cover a specific topic. And, we kind of want to be this overall hub, so that, teens anywhere will go there to get their set of resources, to get the inspiration and the hope from the stories, so that they can consider getting help and opening up and going to recovery.
Yeah, one of my largest listened to, or at least commented on, shows was one that I did years ago, where I did it inside one of the treatment programs. And we set it up in a conference room, and I asked the staff to leave the room so that there was no one else except for the young people in that room, and there were 4 of them. And we had more comments on that because of the value that they gave to other young people. So I had parents that were saying that they were playing the show to their young people to listen to what the other young people were saying because they found it so powerful. And one of the questions that I remember had to do with, it was a grandmother that had sent in a question asking about finding drugs in the grandson's room. The grandson was living with grandma, and finding drugs in there and saying that, well, my grandson says that, it was his friends, and that he doesn't do that, and so on and so forth. And one of the young people in the program said, ma'am, I want to be very honest with you. We lie. And, and I had more people comment on that one particular interaction as to, and he said, look, it's what we do. I said, so, it isn't his friends, it's his, and, you deal with it from that standpoint. But again, the bottom liner for me bringing it up was the fact that I had more parents that sent in saying that, that it had a greater impact because of the fact that it was the young people talking, and there was nobody else in the room to tell them what they could say or couldn't say or anything else. And that's kind of what I see in what you're doing is, I think a lot of young people are going to listen much more intently, knowing that it's coming from their peers.
Yeah, the stories of recovery are absolutely amazing. And, I've been there for the video photography of them. And so many times I'm just absolutely captured and tear up. And they're just amazingly brave and resourceful kids who've gone through a lot. And it's important to know that everybody something, especially now. And, mental health is just part of health. And, that's kind of how we have to think of it. And there's just so many reasons when you talked about the drugs that kid was using, most of the time, a lot of the time, there's underlying emotional pain that they're using the drugs as a negative coping skill. And so, it's about, social emotional learning and getting that into our schools and helping people understand all of that stuff.
No, I couldn't agree more. And there are so many situations in which, the drugs are just a secondary issue, and if they can look deeper and find out what's really going on, that was just something they were using to mask the pain. So I agree completely. Now, let me ask Kara, what is your position with the nonprofit, and share a little bit about what you're doing there and what your vision is to take it to the next level.
So with the nonprofit right now, I'm doing a lot. I like to work, with the teens, mainly ones that I know. I talk to my friends because, I met a lot of people in treatment. I was there for so long that I've, heard firsthand a lot of their stories, which are so powerful. And so, I like sharing our organization with them, getting them to speak. I've had some of them come and work on videos with us. As far as moving forward, I continue to kind of do the most through sharing my own experience and through providing feedback again on like what would have helped me, right? Because that's, a huge, part of this is, when I was going through all that, like what would I've heard? What would I've been receptive to, right? Because it's like, hear so many different things and be like, okay, yeah, but that's them, not me, right? Like they can recover, but they don't know me, so I can't. And so I think it's important to be able to kind of highlight what we know are commonalities and what we know, like a lot of people go through that they think is unique to them. Because we do all have our own unique stories. And, you know, they're still kind of all tied together. And so I really like working, you know, again, like individually with the volunteers, with the stories, and providing feedback on, you know, a lot of our content and our ideas to take things, you know, in different directions, and kind of things that we want to include on the website aside from just you know, stories. Does that answer your question enough?
Yes. Now, and earlier you touched a little bit, you as collectively, you know, on one of the newer things is the Teen Talk webinars. Share a little bit about that, where it's at and where you envision it going.
We're really excited about it because it's a platform where it's just a teen speaking to the therapist. And so it's answering those questions that hopefully teens are asking. And they can also, like Jeff was saying, ask it in the Q&A anonymously. And we're just excited because we want to be able to library these talks on the website so that it's just one more resource that, oh, let me hear what they had to say about depression or anxiety. And then, you know, like all of our material, we want people who are working with kids to be able to utilize it. We've heard from therapists that they really like the idea of pulling up somebody's story on anxiety or having their client watch that story, and it gives them a common place to start that conversation. And so the same thing with the Teen Talks. It's just another way to get the information out there, and it's a more personal way. And, you know, we have lots of therapists who want to be on there and help us, and, you know, no shortage of topics to cover. So.
Well, yeah. I think it's beautiful, and I think it's just brilliant, and it's so incredibly timely. Now let's talk a little bit about the nonprofit itself. What is your call to action? In other words, what is it that you need? How can people, be it, you know, we have a lot of teachers, therapists that listen. We have educational consultants that listen. You know, what can they do? Those that are listening that are saying, I love this. How can I get more involved?
Yeah, absolutely. We need quite a few things, actually. We want the teachers and the professionals to use our site to spread the word, to, you know, kind of get it out there. We also need more teens and young adults who want to tell their stories and share their stories of recovery.
For sure.
Yeah, and we're, you know, like any nonprofit, we're looking for donors and sponsors, you know, people who care about this subject. We need to add to our nonprofit board. So, you know, people who care deeply about this subject, you know, and want to help. And then
we're, you know, we would love to have someone be a sponsor or a spokesperson, someone with followers, a celebrity in any arena.
Who cares about mental health? Yeah. For teens and young adults, because that's our target. Yeah.
Okay, well, good. For everybody out there, you have your marching orders. So there are things that you can do, but you also might know somebody. So for instance, you know, I know the value of like a celebrity endorsement or something. You know, you yourself might not be that person, but you might know who is. So think about it. Now, where is the best place for them to go? Do you want them to go directly to the website?
Yeah, that's the best place. And it's really important to know that it's Teens, the number 4, Teens Help. And we may eventually have to rebrand because there's some other Teens4Teens for cancer, but we're Teens4Teens Help.org. And
yeah, and on the site there's a button for donate, and then you can follow that to, you know, volunteer or contact us. And so that's really the best way to reach us.
All right. And if any of you if you're driving out there and you can't write this down, you can always go to our Answers Network site, and we will make sure that we have that with the correct spelling and the correct number on there. Now we have another question that's coming in. This one says, I went to your site and I feel this approach is long overdue. My daughter was led down the wrong path by other teenage friends in her high school. We caught her drug abuse just in time to get her the help she needed. My husband and I upended our own lives and moved out of the district we were in and made sure that she cut ties with those negative influences. At her new school, she made really quality friends, and now she is starting college locally with several of them. I 100% believe that when teens bond in a positive way, it is a beautiful thing. And this is from Henrietta in Virginia. And Kara, I'd like you to first comment on that.
Comment. Yeah, I mean, that's like a perfect little picture of the impact that young people have on each other. Because, you know, our peers are either our greatest, you know, allies or, you know, essentially enemies, because we're drawn to people our age, right? We want to fit in. We want to have friends. We want to feel liked. And so that can bring people, you know, to doing things that they wouldn't necessarily do on their own. And so that's why it's important too to introduce positive, you know, people. And like, for example, like our site, we share stories of recovery and share the fact that you can have a life outside of your mental illness or your substance use issues. You can have fun without necessarily engaging in those negative behaviors. And there are people out there that, you know, you can be friends with that will be beneficial for, you know, you, your mental health, and your whole life. So it's, you know, it's also about kind of making people aware that, you know, these individuals do exist, you know, the ones that, you know, can have fun and are okay just kind of being who they are, you know, without trying to conform.
Yeah, and I like that. And I want to share something that's a little bit different in regards to this for listeners. You know, if you have a teen that is going through some issues, I've had clients before that have just moved to a more rural area. If you're dealing with a mental health issue, that may not necessarily be the answer. Sometimes taking people out of that an environment of influencers that are not influencing in a positive way can certainly be helpful. And I don't think that you should make that any less important. But understand that if there are mental health issues or there are addiction issues, you may find that taking that young person out of that environment, they may find some of the same problems in the new environment if you don't get professional help. So, and so Jeff and Kathy, your thoughts?
Well, I'm sorry for what they had to go through, and I commend them for doing whatever they needed to do to help their child, which is kind of where we were with Kara. It's like we just did everything we could possibly think of. And I just have to say the peer group is so incredibly important. And really, Kara was in her third residential, and they took them to this organization out in Santa Clarita, a group called A Light of Hope. And it was a group where Kara was immersed with other teens that were in recovery from various different issues, but it was a peer group, and they were free to talk and converse and support each other. And when she got out of treatment, she said, "Mom, I want to keep going out there." And so we did. We drove out to Santa Clarita once or twice a week. And there was also a parent group separately that was there that I got a tremendous amount from. So it was my peer group of parents going through it without judgment, and they were there to support and just offer support, you know, not tell us all what to do, but just be there for each other. And, you know, they're actually our fiscal sponsor right now, and they're Light of Hope. And, you know, they were a lifesaver for us and for many people out in the Santa Clarita Valley. And it's all based on the alternative peer group, they call it, which is finding a group of friends that are not in their substance, that can have fun and do things together.
Yeah. Now we have about 3 minutes, and is anything else that you would like to share before we end this wonderful conversation?
You know, just, you know, right now after 18 months of COVID, and, you know, people just experiencing anxiety for 18 months, which partners with depression, everybody is going through stuff. And I would just say, be kind to yourself, be kind to others.
Yeah,
Yes.
we've really, these are very difficult times, and I know there's lots of conversations now about kids going back to school and how to handle what they're going through, what the teachers are going through. We're in uncharted water, and I think we need to remember that this is all new, and what we're going through, none of us have a roadmap for, and hopefully we're all doing the best we can. And it's just not easy. And I think the other thing I want to add that is really key for us is to pause before you have judgment on somebody who is going through something. That was, it was a big deal for us, because with eating disorders, people have preconceived ideas of what causes them and what they're about. And so it's really difficult, and makes people not want to share. So,
well, thank you for providing a platform where people can go to share. So Jeff, Kathy, and Kara, thank you so much, not only for coming on the show, but for doing what it is you're doing. And for everybody out there, check it out. It's teenshelp.org. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And for everybody out there, please join us next Monday, when we will have Coach Gary Waters in his new book, 10 Principles of a Character Coach. He's the winningest coach in the history of Cleveland State University. Coach Waters will address many of the issues that young men and women are experiencing in the athletic arena today, and why he believes character and values need to be a high priority in those individuals tasked with guiding young people as well as themselves. So for everybody out there, please visit our archives at past interviews at answers.network, or you can subscribe to the show through iHeartRadio, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, Rumble, Spreaker, BeatShoot, YugiTube, HugeTube, and many other popular podcast platforms. And if you like what you hear, please leave a review. Let us know what you think about how we are doing, and I want you to know that we will greatly appreciate that. So for everybody out there, be good human beings, and be with us again next week on Answers Network.
Hello, I'm Marty Cove. You might remember me from roles such as Sensei in the Karate Kid films. I've done over 100 films and countless stunts in my career, and I've always given 100%. With the damage done to my body over time, I needed to find relief from my chronic pain. My passion for health and fitness drove me to find a natural way to combat muscle pain. Teaming up with doctors, detectives, and a compounding pharmacist, we've created Marty's Cobra Cove Ultra Strength CBD Cream. It's the only thing that has been strong enough to knock out my pain, and fast. Honestly, you may have tried the rest, but it's time to try the best. It's legal, it's safe, and 100% effective. Show your pain no mercy. Go to www.martyscobracove.com.